Okay, I will kick it off. It looks like majority of people already joined, and we will start talking and kick off from there. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining webinar today. Today we will be talking about generic things as usual in the beginning to give everyone a context. And then we will be talking about the importance of testing your AI functionality and how to do that. So how do you automate testing of your AI functionality? And Danesh, please create a question. Okay, so let me see if I have questions enabled. All right, so everyone should be able to see the chat, and there's also Q&A questions. If you have any questions at any time, please do not hesitate to ask those in there in Q&A, and I will go through all of them and try to resolve all of them at the end or as we go. All right, so first of all, well, let's talk a little bit about generative AI and how it can help to scale QA. And for that, we need to define what's generative AI, what does it mean to scale, and what is the problem today exactly. And give me 1 second. All right. So keep the Q&A window open in case of your questions. So, okay. So the generative AI is, as you know, those LLMs that you can use. And there is a naive way of using generative AI where you can literally go ahead and go to ChatGPT and ask it, hey, can you please write me such and such test case, and it will do. But of course, this test case is not going to work on your particular website, right? Because generative AI does not really have the full context of what you are testing. So have to get it as a template, get in and actually make it work. And the problem with that is, yes, it is helpful to speed up test automation for sure. And Copilot can also be helpful there as well. But unfortunately, it doesn't solve the problem of completely building your test. And unfortunately, when you do things like this, you introducing huge amount of maintenance, because once you specify the XPaths or CSS selectors, this is where the huge test maintenance coming in. All right, so I would like to introduce testRigor. testRigor is AI agent for software testing for web, mobile, and native desktop applications. I'll walk you through some very, very basics, and then we'll talk about specifically the topic on how to test your LLM-based features in your applications that you are testing, how to automate those tests. All right, so first is the um, what's the problem currently, right? So what is the problem with current approaches? Of course, the challenge with manual testing, there is a lot of bugs in production because you actually cannot retest everything manually. There is like kind of time limitation. If your full cycle takes a month, um, and at the end of cycle, you find 10 bugs for engineers when engineers need to fix the bugs. And then in theory, you need to restart the full cycle and spend the month again in order to retest everything. But nobody does that. People just time box the whole thing. And maybe you have at best like a week or two to retest the fixes, but not the whole of functionality. And this is how you end up with bugs in production. So definitely, the problem is manual testing is just not scalable, and you end up with bugs in production because of it. It's just too many people, too slow. You can't do that. When people usually go to Selenium Appium solution, hey, let's automate testing, and yet again hitting the issue that the maintenance is killing it. The tests almost always break, so the whole thing is not really suitable for CI/CD. It's extremely expensive, super slow, and overall there's a huge challenge. Actually, today on the market, if you look into Gartner reports or anything like that, you'll find out that around only 30% of end-to-end tests include UI are automated today in 2024. Forrester, I believe, have that specific study. And then basically what the main reason for that is test maintenance. So let's say you build a good number of tests, usually within the first year, a team of QA automation engineers can do that effectively. However, starting from the second year, majority of the time of that QA automation team will be spent maintaining existing tests, and therefore you won't be able to have a lot of time building new tests. So the speed will slow down to the point where it will cap out at around 300 tests per person per year, just to maintain the test. It's a full-time job to maintain the end-to-end UI tests at around 300 to 350 tests per person. Like it's becoming full-time job. So you can basically multiply that with 350 by the number of key automation engineers that you have, and this is how much test cases you can maintain, and there would be almost zero time whatsoever to build any new tests beyond that. So therefore, people literally cap out and are not able to get to their automation goals. And this is exactly what testRigor helps with, and I'll get to that in a second. So where is this problem with test maintenance coming from? When we looked into that into details, of course, there is many different reasons in there, but by far number one reason is constant updates and refactorings from engineering that break the locators. So that's the number one reason of large test maintenance. And if you think about it, the approach with relying on locators is conceptually wrong. So if you rely on locators such as IDs, names, test IDs, XPaths, CSS selectors, you're not actually testing the functionality. You are testing how engineers wrote the code of HTML yesterday, and this is constantly changing, introducing a huge amount of maintenance. This is what kills productivity of QA automation engineers. So basically, and the another part of it is that even this problem sounds trivial, kind of like this, right? But uh, the overhead of maintenance is hugely disproportional compared to amount of efforts engineers spend on refactoring the code. For example, if this ridiculous XPath were to change tomorrow, then basically what's going to happen is key automation engineers will see that test broke. We will be able to identify, we'll have to go to the code to identify where it broke. So they will get into the code and find out, okay, it broke here. Then they had to start the system, go through the steps to that particular page or screen where test broke and assess if it's actually a real issue or not. So see, you already spent huge amount of time and you don't even know if it's actually a real issue or if just test needs to be updated. But anyway, so then QA automation engineer would need to get the new locator, copy it, paste it to the code, update the code, save, repeat that process for all test cases that are broken, and then submit the update to test automation code and follow SDLC process in order to update the test. Gigantic overhead, huge. It could have taken engineers 15 seconds to change, and that introduced sometimes maybe days of overhead from QA engineering perspective. That is definitely unsustainable. And this is exactly what kills automation. So this is the reason why you do not have 100% of test coverage today. Otherwise, there's like nothing in theory preventing you to eventually reach your goal. And basically, what is the solution then? Well, the solution is to not to rely on rendering details. So whatever is not visible to end users should not be used in end-to-end tests because this is not how users perceive the things. So what is important is that the functionality functions from end user's perspective the way it's supposed to. And the example of that is from testRigor perspective is this test, which is analogous to the one in Selenium on the left. Mind you, as you can see, it's shorter, so you will be able to write it significantly faster. And then there is zero reliance on any details of implementation in here. As you can see, is you provided username and password in settings, you will be able to go through it, go through login, and then it just validates if page somewhere contains this text. And this is how we help our customers to resolve it. Not only that, the testRigor can execute any English whatsoever. It has two levels, whereas a subset of English that is parsed and executed out of the box. And on top of it, there is free-flowing English. Anything you can write, testRigor will get it and will try to execute it using AI. That means in particular, you can literally import your test cases, your manual test cases from test case management systems, and that is built-in feature into testRigor. You can literally import your manual test cases from testRail, X-Ray, Zephyr, Azure DevOps, and execute them. All right. Not only that, you can actually improve the process. So you can make the process significantly more efficient on building tests and keep yourself at around 100% test coverage. How is it possible? Well, it's not a new thing. It's called ATDD. It's just it's almost impossible to pull off ATDD or acceptance test driven development, ATDD, with traditional frameworks such as Selenium, because you need to rely on details of implementation which are not available before engineers wrote the code, and engineers themselves might not even know how it would be. So that's why nobody ever used ATDD effectively before, and wasn't really possible, but it is possible with testRigor. So what's the difference? With traditional process, product managers are writing specifications first, and then when engineers write the code, and when QA automation basically playing catch up and trying to write the automation code for what engineers have written. De facto, what is happening is QA automation engineers are performing manual testing, because we manually have to write the tests, and we have to basically assess if it is working or not, right? Based on the specification. And while doing that, I'm calling it manual testing, even not automation, because while you do that, you do have to go through the product itself, and you might find issues and discrepancies with the specification. And what happens if you do that and you find those issues is engineers will have to go back and update the code. And what does that mean for QA automation? It means that it is pushed out till the end of the sprint, and then next sprint is already new set of functionality, and then exactly do you have time to even build the testers? Like literally no time. And this is how you keep slipping functionality from being automated, because your QA automation engineers, instead of doing automation, are de facto doing manual testing on code that engineers have written. So consider a more efficient approach where product managers write the specification, and then QA automation can build the automation before engineers write the code. So this way, the only communication would be between product managers and QA automation. So all discrepancies and maybe misunderstandings, ambiguities would be resolved at this point, because QA automation is not ambiguous. It's very specific. Specification might be ambiguous, but QA automation is not. You should see QA automation is basically executable specification of how a system should function. And this is how you should see the QA automation, right? Once this is done, you're providing this ultra detailed specification of how a system should function to engineers. Of course, the test should fail. And engineer's job is to basically write the code based on these two specifications, the generic one and more specific by QA automation engineers, such that the test will turn from red to green, and then success. So what are benefits here? Why would you want to do it? Well, first of all, quality of life for QA automation, right? You don't want to be doing manual testing and live in constant frustration that you are not able to deliver your automation tests, or work overtime and on weekends to be able to catch up. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to hit your expectation and bonus, right? This is extremely frustrating in here. Whereas here is quality of life for QA automation is for sure orders of magnitude better. So you basically are building executable specifications for engineers, not other way around. Moreover, with this process, not only you will be able to build that faster, like people who use testRigor on average build test automation about 15 times faster than with Selenium. But also, so you basically will be taking a hit on clarifying the potentially ambiguous specification. So engineers don't have to do that. And basically, they don't need to rewrite the code, which in turn saves probably there is a there have been a research with BNP Paribas that they saved on average 35% of engineering time on rewrite for engineers with this process. So this way, you literally will be able to deliver everything faster and will be able to fit into the sprint and have your automation goals achieved. This is how it should be done. All right. So, and then a lot of companies are using us, and basically the Gartner was very impressed by this system and picked us up as a cool vendor last year. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about, and we will build a small test at this point for Amazon. And let's call it when you create, this is how you build tests. On testRigor, you creating a test suite. There is a way to do web testing, web on mobile, native mobile, or basically native Windows tests in there. You would provide usually username and password. We don't do it. And we would need to provide the specification. In this case, this is an e-commerce website selling electronics. Let's do it like this for now. Of course, you would need to copy paste the full description properly, what your product managers will provide. So it will by default will generate you one test case based on the description, and this is what it's doing right now. There we go. You can edit it. Let's be more specific here. Let's say Kindle or something. Verifies successful purchase flow for Kindle. Great. Let's build that test. And we'll kick things off. I would love to do a little bit a shorter one to show off a specific point in here. So first is test finding a Kindle. And what we'll do is we enter Kindle into search, tap enter, and check that page contains Kindle. All right, let's kick it off. All right, the way it works is that the system kick off the VM, and then kick off the browser, starts the agent. The agent pulls up the URL that we specified and created this test suite, which is amazon.com, if you remember. When agent puts it into browser, kicks it off, waits until page loads, takes a screenshot, uploads a screenshot, and then starts to execute the steps. So as you can see, that's why a little bit of a delay in there. But voila, I was able to do that. As you can see, it entered Kindle, and we pressed enter, and there is a Kindle in there in the search results. Anyway, so I'll cancel another test for now. The now let's imagine there are large UI changes happening in the organization. Let's say you're working for Amazon, and as a VP of Amazon UI, whatever, you say, hey, Amazon rendering is not good. We don't like it. But Best Buy did a great job. How about we change our UI to match Best Buy? So we will emulate that by changing the URL here and doing rerun. And however, once you have released the new UI or released it to test environment, you want to run your automation to make sure that the functionality that you have produced before is still functioning the same way as it used to function before. And please go ahead and ask questions in Q&A session. And yes, this webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording after the fact. All right, and voila, as you can see, same exact test ran on Best Buy. So we entered in Kindle in here, typed enter, and this is a Kindle on the page right there. So point being is this is how it should work, and that is the how end-to-end tests are supposed to work. Before getting to the next part and talking about testing AI features, let me answer some questions. How do we test mobile applications? Excellent question. I might get it at the end, but it's pretty straightforward. You basically do the same exact thing, but you upload the application. Then you create the test suite, and you can use exactly the same language to a point where you can actually reuse your test code that you wrote for web for both Android and iOS applications. So this is another way how you can create and maintain 3 times less code in there. And I guess I will show a demo in a second at the end if I'll have time. Can Cypress test be imported? Yes. Selenium, Appium, Cypress, and Playwright tests can be imported. We do not have yet feature released in the UI, but you can go ahead and set up a demo with testRigor on the UI and basically provide your tests. This is the request a demo button in there on testRigor.com, and people will help you to do that. We do have internal tools. They are not yet exposed in the UI, but yes, it is possible. The expectation is not all of those tests, of course, will be completely working exactly the same you'd like to, but we will be hopefully very little effort to finish cleaning them up. How could you showcase how this works for mobile app as well? Okay, great. Great question. I do not have multiple versions of applications, but it will work literally exactly the same way. So if you can suggest a couple of applications that you would like to use that have similar type of functionality, I'd be happy to set up and show them. I probably have to be off this meeting because we only have 20 minutes left. How does it read DOM structure and runs other website? So the difference how testRigor works as opposed to traditional Selenium Cypress Playwright is that testRigor does not rely on the DOM structure. The way testRigor functions is basically it gets visible elements from the page, classifies it into 3 categories, something that is interactable where you can click. It does not have to be button or a tag. It's just something clickable, could be a div. Then all input elements, and then on top of it, all other texts and images. And then it basically execute your instructions on those sets of elements, emulating how a human would do it. For example, let me walk you through just one example here. So in this particular case, how did we execute enter Kindle into search, right? So first of all, we got this page, and this page have one search, one input in the first place, right? But it might not be the search. If it's not the search input, then we would have failed, right? But we got all of those. So it might be actually more in the footer or something like that. I don't know. And when we execute the command, we get the list of searches, which include this search on the top. And since this is enter command, that it will interact with the search, right? And we find search by multiple ways, including synonyms by default. If you see the placeholder here would say find, which is a synonym for search, and this is, I believe, how it found it. However, if there would be a text on the left saying search, comma, and we would be able, testRigor would be able to use that. It basically uses all the ways you as a human would identify that this input is a search input. And then basically, hey, we found an input. Now all we need to do is just enter Kindle into that input, and that's trivial. Like it's just move mouse, click, type. All right. So therefore, and we do it every single time like this. Every single time you run the test, we'll do the same thing, and this is how this test was able to survive. Let me open it in a new tab, I guess, to show it. Survive two different websites. This is it running on Amazon, and this is exactly the same test, no modification. It's running on Best Buy. It's because every single time we execute it exactly the same way as you would do it manually, as opposed to relying on details of implementation. And on top of it, again, you can use AI. We'll get to that in a second. You can say find and select a Kindle, and it will do that similar thing as well. Let me show you. So this is not parsed. This is not a parsed subset of language for testRigor. We would use AI, and you'll see how it will figure out based on this phrase that it will treat as a prompt on what needs to be done in here. Anyway, so the answer is there is no DOM structure, and this is why it is stable. Okay, so next question is, it's free or paid? Well, good news, it's both. So if you go to testRigor.com and click sign up, you can fill out the your account information in here with your username, email, and password, which you'll be using later on to log in. And below, if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see the plans that are here. So this plan actually will be deprecated earlier than October 1st. But difference between forever free plan like open source and private plans is, well, that is it private or public? It's similar to what you would get in GitHub. In a GitHub, there is open source repositories and there is private repositories. It's exactly the same thing. If you're using open source, it's free. If you're using private, it's paid. Other than that, they're basically pretty much similar. So the open source should be, you should create yourself a free open source account just to play around and, train yourself. And then you'll be able to share your results with anyone you'd like. It's no problem. The private you should use if you want to test some real functionality for real company. And well, this functionality clearly shouldn't be shared before it's released to the public, or even never if it's a special type of functionality. So in this case, you would use private free trial in this case. Anyway, so here, find and select the Kindle is basically, yeah, it was able to enter Kindle in here, but it stopped in there. Didn't select anything, and that's an example of hallucination. It should have actually selected something. But anyway, I guess it was thrown off by find the Kindle test. So next question, is there any trial version? Yes, we already answered. Can you automate chatbots? Yes, this is exactly what I would like to talk about in here. Do we need to write any custom scripts to automate the web applications using testRigor? No, there is no other script. So testRigor literally executes your manual test cases as such. So you use English. In testRigor, English is your executable language. So we treat English as similar to how Python interpreter reads Python. Right? And on top of it, we use LLMs to make sure we can actually understand everything. So yeah, there is no code. We literally execute that. So there's no need to write any code after that. All right, so I'll answer other questions after that because I want to show the most important part of this demo, and that is dealing with AI, right? So every company, well, statistically, 90% of the companies have already released LLM-based features into production today. If your company that you work for did not do that yet, there is an extremely high probability it will very soon. So now the questions become, hey, how do we test this functionality? And usually people just do it only manually. However, you can actually automate testing of this AI functionality with testRigor. And for that, we will use the feature where, we will use AI to assess the certain statements like that you want to validate using AI on a page in this case. Okay, so let's imagine, I'm not sure if this chatbot actually AI or not, but I will emulate that being AI. So let's say based by help, it says based by help. If you hover over, this is what we'll do. So let's build a test. Test what chatbot replies correctly. What do we mean? Let's first of all click best by help. What next? So let's type ask our chatbot, right? How do I buy a Kindle? Question mark. So enter this into, I remember it had chatbot in there. Chatbot, type enter. And it is super, super slow. I remember last time it took 30 seconds or so, I think. So we'll do intentional wait. You usually don't need to do it, and we can actually validate if it'll work fine without it. But sometimes Best Buy is obscenely slow. Anyway, so what is important in these responses in here? Okay, so the as you can see here, let's validate let's say this text, right? Because it looks, it might be AI generated, I do not know. Basically what we want to make sure is we assess that text like this had been written, right? So in this particular case, what does it say? Picking out the right product can be hard. Our experts are here to help. So basically, we need to assess that chatbot response says that there are people people who will be able to help, experts who will be able to help, right? Chatbot response that states that there are people there who will be able to help. And we have to be, we don't know what are experts. Well, I guess it's people using AI. All right. Add and run. Anyway, so basically you see the point here, right? So you can't validate exactly this text because LLM will always produce ever so slightly different different text every single time. You have to create the statements that are true, that you want to be true, you want to make sure are correct. But basically, the point is that it doesn't matter how exactly the chat is going on. You want to make sure certain points are made, that your chatbot made certain points. Let's say response was positive or whatever it is. You can apply the same technique to validating graphs and diagrams on canvases. Like this is again something that people never test, is that their charts, diagrams, and graphs are actually rendering correctly. And you can actually say things like, hey, the graph is growing, or like on a diagram, 30% is such and such, and so on and so forth, and it will be assessed. All right. So there you go. So here we entered this Kindle. How do I buy Kindle? Into here. And voila. So this is a response, and it failed. And let's see what is going on. So if something fails, basically it's very easy to assess, and a part of making sure you can automate your tests like this is prompt engineering. So you would need to fine-tune the prompt to make sure it does what it does, and in particular make it unambiguous. And we make it easier for you because if it fails, see, it falls, and AI would provide you the reason why it falls. See, that's what I was afraid of. So it became, very down to details, minute details, precise. So basically, he's saying experts does not mean people. Okay. So sure. So see, this is a bug not in the screen or AI. It is a bug in our prompt to the AI. So we need to fix the prompt. Chatbot response, it states that, first of all, doesn't state it, what assures that there are experts there who will be able to help. Sure, then yeah. So I guess there are two issues in here that might have thrown it away. First of all, instead of states probably mean literal state. This is what you would expect to see literally word to word. And second, what probably threw it off is that experts and people in 2024 is not exactly the same thing, right? Experts might be AI at this point. Anyway, so let's kick it off. And again, so this is a process, and I'm exploring it with you together. And I'll show you the tools, how to make it work, because trust me, you'll run into very similar issues when you try to use it for the first time. You'll be, whatever you think is unambiguous is actually ambiguous and might mean something else. Okay. So while it's executing in there, I'll go ahead and answer some questions. If there is a trial for the so many days, can we automate chatbots? Yes, you can automate chatbots. I just shown how to do that. For AI-based chatbots, if it's not AI-based, then that's pretty trivial, right? You can literally just validate that page contains certain text, and that's it. And the free version is free forever, and trial version is 14 days trial. And you can always ping sales team if you need to extend that. How is this any different from writing tests and using Selenium to locate and communicate with web elements? How testRigor finding elements respective inputs, buttons, fields, and so on. This is exactly what I was communicating. It basically finds visible elements and interacts with visible elements. And it is basically refinding the element to interact with every single time you execute the test. It's as if your test would be constantly breaking, and then you'll be going to the page, finding the new XPath or whatever it is, pasting in a new test, and rerunning the test again. But you don't need to do that because testRigor just don't need that, since it does not rely on any details of implementation. It allows you to express how functionality should function from end user's perspective. There is no the locators. You would interact with the elements on the page directly the same way as you would with a human. And that's the example of that is this, right? Just click that Best Buy help, which basically was a tooltip in there like this. You can use that. And so on and so forth. Very, very straightforward way of interacting with it. And as you can see, this time it went through. I guess because we fixed it. First of all, it assures, and then that's probably the more better way to say that. And then there's experts, not necessarily humans. So that is, I believe, is the reason that one of two things, or both of those was the reason why it's now going through. And let's rerun it again. It should stay as the same. Next question is, you told that before the code you can do key automation, but you showed Amazon example which already being developed. Okay. How do you build the test before engineers write the code? And you need to make sure that that it fails, because otherwise it's not helpful, right? It's not testing anything. So what are we going to test that does not exist on Best Buy? Test purchase spaceship button exists, right? And what you do is you click purchase a spaceship. So that definitely does not exist on Best Buy. So you kick it off. It will fail. All right. So what is this time? Oops. Okay, so here we failed before we even got there. Why? Well, because it is it was not able to click on this button since there is this survey thing. So no thanks. This is exactly what we can do. So you can click no thanks if exists. There we go. So we can actually get to the important part. All right, and here it will just need to wait until it fails. And then once it is failed, this is how you'll build tests for your QA, for your engineers with the functionality that's not there yet. So there is no, purchase a spaceship button on the Best Buy website. So it should fail, and of course it does. And this is the test you would give to your engineers and say, hey, folks, can you please make this work and add the button to the UI which says purchase a spaceship? Not that Best Buy needs that, of course, but in theory, if we were to start selling spaceships, then maybe you would want to promote those spaceships, and you'll have a button on the website, and that's a new functionality that engineers need to develop in order to be able to release that, right? And of course, like purchase spaceship is just a first step, right? You have to write the whole test, what would happen after this purchase spaceship. And of course, you can and should reuse the functionality, right? So here, and voila, as you can see, we ran it second time and worked perfectly fine here after we fixed the situation with no thanks in there. So another thing that actually we even did it the wrong way. It shouldn't be here, it should be actually here. So we can rerun it again. But before we do that, actually, you know what, we'll kick it off and I'll show another thing. If you can go ahead and do reusable rules and paste it in here and say accept or dismiss pop-up. You can actually make it work. The reason why we call it rules is you can actually make it work on every step and say, hey, if page contains with no thanks, and click it no thanks, and that's it. But for simplicity reason, we just make it just a function, and we'll go ahead and extract it as a function. So you will be able to use it as a function in here. So if you, where is this? This one. So if you open the test case, as you can see, where is the dismiss pop-up there, and moreover, you can create, when you create a new test, you can start typing dismiss pop-up, and that function is already available. So it's actually very easy and fast to build all that, the new functionality, once you are outlining the once you are outlining the outlined all your functionality, all your terminology that you use yourself to describe how to navigate around the application. Moreover, this is actually the hack how to make AI work efficiently, because AI will also use your functions. So when you say things like, hey, I want to build such and such test, and then it will be building the test, or you will be importing the test cases, your manual test cases, it will be able to basically use the functions that you have outlined in there. So it's an efficient way of doing that. So you should probably, when you're importing test cases, you shouldn't just do bulk import. You should just do it first, like for one or two test cases, export, refactor out the all those phrases that you have as functions, and then import all the test cases in that section or area. Then AI will be able to use the functions that you have outlined, and then you repeat that for every section or area as you go. This way, you basically building leveraging AI as much as possible, and you're building kind of framework which AI is using to build the tests. All right, so it ran second time. We can run it the third time and see and so on and so forth. But anyway, I'll continue answering. So before going, okay, so we did that. Geniemax have dynamic elements. Will you be able to manage automating via testRigor? So, well, testRigor is not runtime. testRigor, steps, especially if you use AI, will take a little bit of time to process. Whereas the processing overhead, of course, the number one overhead is like how quickly your website actually loads and functions. And in case of Best Buy, it's pretty slow. Especially this pop-up is very slow. But if your website actions fast, it will work a little bit faster, but still there is an overhead, as you can see, like 2-3 seconds and so on and so forth. The testRigor will give you about 10% overhead compared to Selenium tests. So of course, when you dealing with shooters, you need to run complex AI with microseconds latency, and that is not what testRigor does. With the step-by-step games, if you have, let's say, texts and stuff like that, and it's just a step-by-step game, and not a runtime game, there is no requirement to respond within a certain amount of time, and depending how quickly you respond, the result will change. If it's not that, then you can use testRigor to automate those kind of cases. Step-by-step games, strategies, and stuff like that, you can do it with testRigor. In testRigor, you can also use OCR to detect all text and stuff like that, or click by image. If you can extract the images of sprites that you have and use that to click on those and so on and so forth. So the answer is it depends on context, but testRigor is not applicable for dynamic games, only for step-by-step games. Won't this affect the jobs? Well, first of all, I do not know, right? But what I believe is it will make the jobs more efficient and more fun in that sense, from what we have seen in most of the cases. So then company purchases testRigor. What we see happening is people start communicating better, and we have started to build better tests faster and earlier. And this is what we have seen so far. It's mostly like, hey, we still need the people to build the tests. It's just how quickly we can do that, right? Can we deliver it better test faster? Because the point is, the companies want to be able to move faster, to be able to retain their competitive advantage. And if your work will enable engineers to basically deliver 35% faster, that's a no-brainer. People would want to work with you on that for sure. And this is not about testRigor. The AI change is happening right now, whether you want it or not. So there's always two options. You either adapt, or if you don't want it, then you can try to find all those companies that still do not use AI, but the number of those companies will be dropping down very quickly. Because if AI can help you to become 10x more productive, then there is no reason to not to use it. Anyway, how can we test enterprise apps that are not available publicly, but only available locally? Excellent question. testRigor is SOC 2 compliant, and there is a way to deploy everything on premise. And if you want to run tests on localhost, it is possible. There is a command line, and you can run it on localhost and specify your localhost URL to run the tests, and you can keep all your tests in a testRigor, or you can download all your tests, because all tests in testRigor is intentionally just plain text, you can keep it in the Git the same way as you keep Selenium tests in Git. You can collocate the test with the functionality if you want to. So that's definitely is possible and pretty widely used feature. How is the weight handled? As you click and navigate the pages, as patch load can be different every time. Great question. So basically, testRigor emulates how human would do it. It will wait until the button or page is there. So as soon as it is there, then it will be able to click it. So let's actually try an experiment and see how good the Best Buy is in here. Would be able, there is a timeout 30 seconds. If, there is no reply within 30 seconds, then it's considered not there, because nobody in their right mind would wait for more than 30 seconds for something to appear. Usually. So you do not need to add any weights whatsoever in testRigor. So let's see, how can I buy a Kindle? Question mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, 6, 7 seconds basically. As you can see, it's very, very, very slow. And we wanted to get on the right page and where. So that's why the delay. I should wait until stuff is in there. But point being, it will be able to do it. As you can see here, let's look into another example. This one, right? Here, it was able to wait until like this one, right? So you press an enter and page does not immediately change, right? It takes some time for it to update it. And basically testRigor will automatically wait until page is updated and the data is in there. So you do not need to do this anywhere. And as you can see, this is an example, right? So basically, it wasn't there for at least 7 seconds, guaranteed. So testRigor was waiting until page will have it, and then it would validate it that it is in there. So you don't technically need, this way it was actually overkill. I was trying to, be too cautious probably. All right. How do I ensure that all possible test cases are created in the test suite? Basically, how to make sure that test coverage is good enough. Well, like that's your job as a product expert, basically. This is why you know, like you will be paid salary for foreseeable future, right? So you can generate the test cases. Remember that that process here. You can use the specification, press this button, and say, hey, as a user, let's say we have a specification for a new feature as a user. I can find products like Kindle using top search bar. and you want to generate 3 test cases for it. And heads up, whatever is generated by AI, because test cases in there, you'll have to review and correct. Do not trust AI, please. But it'll give you a little bit of a help in there. So this way, by copy pasting the specification for different areas, you can increase the coverage. Can you assess the cover if coverage covered everything? They provide you tools to help with it, but it's your job as the domain expert to be able to assess that properly. So another tool that we provide is TreeView. So basically, you'll be able to assess how tests go through all the tree of your application in there. And you can see the screenshot and this thing. Anyway. So next, do I need a mobile emulator to test for mobile, or can we test on cloud devices? testRigor works like provides infrastructure for you. So this is what you're paying for. You're paying for the infrastructure, basically. You're not paying for testRigor. And that means that it provides infrastructure for mobile applications as well as web applications. You can test on Windows, Macs, iOS, Android. You can use browsers like Chrome, Edge, Safari, Firefox, Chrome on Android, Safari on iOS, and so on and so forth. Anyway. As you can see here, like the AI is just failing to provide the proper validations in here, right? Verify search suggestions. It didn't do that. However, you can go ahead and add the validation. Paperwhite. I guess it's the type of Kindle that should come up. Anyway, point being, you should review what is going on there. But generated by AI all the time. Next is yes, we will share the recording. So we already shared. How does it work? So is the command enter Kindle in search is standard specifying command, or can do variations? You should check the documentation. You can find when you register, you click on resources, documentation, and there is a subset of English that is parsed and executed by testRigor. And on top of that, remember we had this thing where we just wrote whatever we want that was parsed and executed by LLM. So definitely go ahead and check that in there. What is out of the box supported, but the answer is yes, enter something into something, and a lot of variations of it is out of the box. So therefore, it doesn't use AI. There is no hallucinations. There is no ambiguity. It just executes exactly as you would expect. In addition to UI testing, can you also handle protocol validations, something beyond UI testing? Depending on what kind of protocol, but you can do API tests if this is what you're referring to. If not, please go ahead and create a request. The demo will answer more if I didn't understand that. How it will validate the form, example, sign up form. Well, you would need to write the exact same steps as you would do it in the manual test case. For example, you can pre-fill the form partially and then click submit and then validate that certain error messages will come up. Or you can validate that certain fields are there before you even start. So there is anything you can do manually, testRigor will be able to do for you. Can it detect scenario where button is misplaced? We'll try click similar element which was present in the same location, giving us false positive. No, this is exactly the problem that testRigor solves. So if your button is misplaced and at the same location as a different button, then testRigor will find the right button and click on it because of the nature of how it works, right? If you said click submit, it will find the submit button and then click on it. It will not, testRigor does not use locators or locations at all whatsoever, literally. So this is exactly the problem that testRigor solves as opposed to Selenium, Cypress, and Playwright tests. So next is, can we execute cases where two different devices talk to each other as a test? Answer is yes, you can actually, in the documentation, there is a way to upload multiple devices. Where is it? Yeah, you can switch between devices. You can start a new device and so on and so forth. So there is a way to upload new application. I might not be able to find where it is exactly. Okay, I guess where it is. Install application. So you can install a new application and then switch between those two applications on the same mobile. Or alternatively, you can run a completely new, start a new device and run is the same or different application and where under different user and interact test, for example, your chat functionality. So definitely yes. Yes, you can validate notifications and so on and so forth for sure. If okay, so the next question is, I guess if it is possible to generate reports for your company, his answer is yes. We have. You should contact us in sales, but there is a way to generate you appropriate reports from your company. Yeah, it can reflect your company. Yes, we do partnerships, we do white labeling. Can we get data from CSV to test on a database website? testRigor does support the data-driven testing through data sets. You create a data sets set in here, and then you can go to that data set and basically upload CSV, and you can use that CSV for testing for running your test case, providing different tests, providing different results, right? If you can test with different data, and testRigor can generate you data in place. So like check out the generate command. It basically will support anything you want in there. Kindle search and search are written inside space. Is this a keyword? Kindle and search are written inside space. inside double quotes. Is this keywords? Got it. So again, this is double quotes, and this is a format for this supported subset of plain English that testRigor supports out of the box. You can go ahead and convert it to, if you remove the double quotes, it will still work, but you'll be relying on AI to be able to understand whatever you're trying to say in there, basically. So you can do both, but your best bet is to follow the supported syntax. Is there an existing integration with AWS? The testRigor can test any applications anywhere, including behind your firewalls and your private VPNs and so on and so forth. As I've already mentioned, it doesn't matter where it's deployed. You can deploy it on AWS as well. No problem. Can this be used for non-functional testing like performance testing? How about security testing? Well, performance testing to a degree. testRigor, when you execute the test, it will measure how long it will take testRigor to execute certain steps, like in this 3 seconds and so on and so forth. You can also do load testing. However, it's not your classical load testing. Usually, it is complementary, not replacement for real load testing with API load. So with testRigor, basically you will be running full-blown agents with UI steps that it will execute those steps. For security testing, we partner with different companies to do security testing. testRigor does not do security testing except security for LLMs that you can test using AI, as we have just shown in this test. So there is a WASP top 10 for LLMs, and testRigor will help you to automate away all of those. However, security testing is far, far, far beyond that, and testRigor does not support all of that. We partner with different companies, do talk to sales, and you can basically pick whatever system you want to use with testRigor, and we'll help it to get on all the pages to do the security testing for you. Can you show us the automation script generated using testRigor? Absolutely. So this is the script, and if you go here, so this generated some stuff. You can command click on this or control click on Windows. So this is reusable rules, remember, and this is it. By default, it will always use AI, but we can uncheck it, and this is a step it had been generated. So all the step, everything testRigor does is all in English. There is no code behind it. testRigor does not generate any code. It executes testRigor out of the box. What if we have multiple elements, the same text, how you will handle? Excellent question. So we don't have a lot of time to go through for an example, unfortunately, but I'll get to, let's see if I can pull up some example in here. Yeah, this is a good example. So this is a page of a product, in this case, iPad. And if you look here, right, if you look closely on this page, you'll see that add to cart is here and here. right? So what will happen if you right-click Add to Cart on testRigor? Well, testRigor will click on, because we don't know what we want. testRigor will click on the first Add to Cart, which will be this one, which is not what you want. If you want, which is basically you should consider testRigor is very stupid, but very energetic teenager that will do exactly as you said. Yeah, but it's very precise. If you wanted to click on this one, you have to specify like which one, right? You can say things like a third add to cart, or you can say add to cart to the left of save, or add to cart below see you in store. Like anyway, how you can refer to the right add to cart. Most probably testRigor just supports it out of the box, but excellent question. Thank you. So it's up to you how you specify what it should click. Is there a free version with of testRigor we run in any times, any limit per day, per month, and so on and so forth? Great news. There is no limit. testRigor does not charge per people or number of test cases or number of executions. You can go ahead and build as many test cases as you want and run them as many times as you want. So we just charge per parallelizations, how many tests we'll execute in parallel. You mentioned login. You did not mention credentials. Where would that be specified? When you create the test suite, you specify those when create test suite. After the fact, you can still add them. They are currently in settings, authentication. And this is your application-specific authentication. This is where you provide username and password. Additional username and password can be currently specified as a test data. However, we're building a UI to make it significantly easier to manage multiple sets of credentials for you. Great question. The first word in the test case steps are color coded differently. Have these keywords. How many such keywords are there? It's not keywords, as I mentioned. testRigor is not keyword driven. It's a parser and LLM on top of the parser. So parser means that it knows all parts of your string, not just the keyword. So as you can see here, like in this particular case, it's more complex. And then you can say things like second, like input like this for two of them, and so on and so forth. As I mentioned, you can read up about those in resources documentation, or as always a documentation link above any editor in there, and where you can go through and read up on how does it all work right there. In fact, speaking of how does it all work, if you go to testRigor.com and go to resources, no, AI testing. Well, I guess AI testing, and you can click on how does it all work, and it will basically walk you through how exactly does it work and how do you use AI. So it's public. So go to testRigor.com, AI testing, how does it all work? You can read it up in more details than I outlined here. So mobile app, I apologize, we do not have time for that. How can we make bot handle no such, no thanks survey dialog if it appears unexpectedly? Excellent question. So that is usually straightforward. You go to reusable rules. That's why it's called rules, right? And you can create a function like a pop-up, and let's make it, automatically apply on every steps up to 5 first steps, and then check it. Page contains, you can write any kind of validation you like, and voila, this way it will automatically trigger even though you did not specify this function. Even if you didn't use this function as any of your first steps of your test, there will be no thanks on the screen. It will click on it. So this is probably the best way to handle this situation. Great question, Chandru. If developer has given a spaceship by mistake, okay. So basically misspelled spaceship. In this case, also our test case will fail, or it will pass using Gen AI. Excellent question. It depends on the settings that you set. You can set settings to automatically adapt to use Gen AI. By default is actually turned off, because if there is a misspelling, this is, I'm sure, not what your product managers want to see. Therefore, by default, testRigor test will fail. So spaceship with I and spaceship with double E as in sheep wouldn't pass. As you would expect, the meeting recording will be shared. Yes. Is it similar to robot framework? No, it is not similar. Robot framework is just a lipstick on a pig of Selenium. Basically, you're still relying on locators and details of implementation. You're not doing that with testRigor. So this is the difference. Moreover, in testRigor, you can just write any language or Gherkin if you choose to do so, and testRigor will execute it for you. So it's very much different. Can we get session recording? Yes. Can we run multiple tests at the same time? Excellent question. Yes, all the tests run in parallel at the same time. Basically, depending on how many parallelizations you have, this is how we charge you, right? So it's under your control how many tests will run concurrently. But by default, testRigor will execute all of the tests in parallel. If your company purchased 10,000 parallelizations with that, and you only have like 5,000 tests, all of them will execute in parallel, no problem at all whatsoever. So and that's best practice. You should write your tests to be able to execute in parallel, because this is the only way how you can speed up the test execution with large enough number of end-to-end tests. There's literally no other way, regarding what framework you're using. At some point, you'll be hitting a limit on how long your tests will run. So definitely make sure your tests can run in parallel, and testRigor will run them for sure. How testRigor locate elements if you respond by visible text? Does AI require human interference if, say, for example, visual text of button change? I apologize, this has already been asked. testRigor relies on two types of signals for web and mobile. It relies on whatever is visible and on accessibility attributes, right? So, for example, there's things like array label and tooltips and all this kind of stuff that screen readers would use for visually impaired people. So testRigor is basically kind of a combination of person that can see with a visually impaired person, and it joins this information together. So in particular, if you remember, when we click on this thing, it has a tooltip best by, right? Where was it? This test, when we were testing the chatbot, if you scroll to the left, here we are clicking on best by help, whereas there is no text in here saying best by help. It's a tooltip. So this is how you should mostly rely on that. And of course, if that is not available, you can use like icons, images, AI, or whatever you'd like, and then it will be AI that is doing that. But there is no human interference, right? You are basically building an automation in here. Canvases, iframes. Yep, that's supported out of the box. You can deal with canvases using AI and OCR, and this is how you test. For example, oftentimes certain applications that render everything on canvas. What's the name of this framework? I forgot. But anyway, the iframes, shadow DOMs, and so on and so forth are, processed transparently. So in this particular case, I'm 99% sure this pop-up is external application as in its own iframe. I don't know, Will. Let's see. If you do inspect. No, actually, in this case, it's not iframe. But oftentimes it is part of iframe, and it will still work transparently. So testRigor works with iframe transparently. If it didn't work, then you should go to settings and increase number of out of the box processed depth of out of the box processed iframe. So definitely, if you want to work with iframes, shadow DOMs, testRigor is definitely a great choice. You won't need to deal with that at all whatsoever. So we already answered about duplicate page. Is it hosted on a cloud? You can do both. By default, we are SOC 2 and HIPAA compliant. Vast majority of our customers use us as SaaS. However, you can deploy it on premise as well with hosted, no problem. Can I do UX design testing? Maybe compare Figma design or front-end based working. In certain sense, but not really the minute UI testing. So Figma had released recently a dev mode, if you know, and a dev mode, basically you can build run the Figma UI and you will be able to interact with it. You can use that UI to build and debug your tests before it gets to engineers, and engineers, build it into actual application. In this way, it will help you to build the test in this format before engineers write the code. And this is, in a sense, like, it's not exactly UX, but you can do that based on Figma. And then for UX tests, so we have built-in validations that will catch automatically issues that you can see as a human on the page. You can enable it on every step, or you can do it, explicitly. And you can do AI-based validations, custom AI-based validation like this, and make AI assess usability or anything like that for the form, like high level. There is no way to get the Figma form and say it should look like this. Well, because it will probably never look like this anyway in the first place, since Figma prototypes do not have the same data as your real or even test version of your application, right? So for example, the Figma only have like example with 2 items on the list, and in your case, there's 10,000, there's pagination, and like the text is different, it overflows, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different use cases and stuff like that. So it will be different. The actual application after it's coded will be different. How it looks. However, you can it should function the same way, and that you can test with testRigor. Can you demo desktop application, please, if possible? Tushar, please go ahead and go to testRigor.com and request a demo. We'll be happy to show you the demo of desktop application. No problem. Unfortunately, we way over time. If the first word is okay, so I already answered that. And unfortunately, people who wanted to see a demo for mobile application, you should also please go ahead and request a demo to see a mobile application demo, because we way over time. I apologize. We have to wrap up right now. But as I mentioned, it works exactly the same way. So let me see if I can pull up quickly some simple example in here. So this is, I guess, is some simple example. So this is a mobile application, as you can see. In this particular case, it works with the physical devices. So it's related to IT. So we just did a negative test in here. Tap, check, and click will work the same way as tap, because in this context, it's the same. This way you can reuse your code. Even where it says click, it will do the tap for you, no problem. And as you can see, it just works the same stuff. Just tapping and entering the data and so on and so forth. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And if I still did not resolve some of your questions, please go ahead and request a demo, and people will be happy to answer questions for you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.